It's all fun and games till someone gets shot.
The highly anticipated PS5 Pro was just revealed. We got a visual demonstration playing in the background. You guys can see what the game can do. But everywhere you look all over the internet, people are mocking this game heavily. And you really don't have to think that hard to comprehend why. For the most part, all of these games that are releasing looks exactly the same. This is something that the Tekken 8 developers were even talking about. They were saying that everyone can do 4K. The thing that sets them apart now is like lighting and playing around with the sun and reflection. I think gamers are beyond that, and now we're looking for games that's fun, that's actually adding content. So for them to lead with that segment and try to talk about like ray tracing, it's worthless, right? Ray tracing is not something that, you know, the average gamer is focusing on anymore, right? But let's talk about the real thing that players are upset about is the price. You see this meme here? If you're defending a $700 price tag, you are part of the problem. When you talk about PlayStation, they have very little competition, and when they have competition in the past, they adjusted their prices to reflect that. Here's a post from Jeff Keighley. You can see he was hit with a little reader context note, adding a little bit more information. But the PS3, this is where they got greedy, and it was like, okay, PlayStation 2 was one of the best consoles, probably the best console of all time. Let's up the price. And they dropped a $700, almost $800 price, and Xbox revealed their console price afterwards, and they literally undercut them for like $100 or something like that. And that's what allowed the 360 to initially get so much you know, of an audience, right? Because people were looking at the two and they're like, okay, I'll go get that. And you could combine that with 360 being such a good console anyways, and offering a lot of games. It made that competition very fierce. PlayStation had a lot to worry about then, right? And as you can see with the PlayStation 4, they learned from that increase in price in PlayStation 3, and also almost being you know, knocked off the throne by Xbox. So they dropped their price to $500 and the Pro to $500, right? They stole back their audience. They dominated the gaming genre, and that dominance is now carrying over to PlayStation 5 because as Xbox says, we're in the online era. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One was an important era because people were building up their online you know, archives. Basically, it's when people really like stuck with one console, right? And you know, once they realized with the PlayStation 5 that they had the players and they had them back for good, they are now upping it to like what they did with the PlayStation 3. So you have this moment where the normal price is like $600. When they're feeling a little stress or a little bit of competition, they drop it to $500. But when they're feeling confident, you start seeing those $700 come out. Jeff Keighley also hosted this massive poll, almost 100,000 votes, and he's asking players what do they think the right price is for the PS5 Pro. And you can see $500, $600 is basically what players are agreeing on. What's really interesting about this is when you look at right now the consoles you can go out and buy. So if you want to buy a game today, you can play on PC $4,000, PS5 Pro for $700, a PS5 for less than $500, an Xbox for less than $500, a Steam Deck, another Xbox, a Switch, and a Switch Lite. All of these other options, except for a PC and a PS5 Pro, are under $500. And this is the main thing. Like when you're trying to sell a new console, you have to give people a very good reason to make that leap. And a $700 price tag with very few upgrades, it's not going to cut it. You have this tweet from IGN. Now this is IGN. It says lack of competition made it an easier decision for Sony to run with the prices for the PS5 Pro. Having a monopoly on the console gamer, they can do things like increase the prices of their controllers. No one can say anything. They could do things like put stick drift in every single controller. No one can really do anything. Raise the prices of games from $60 to $70. They said it's expensive to make games, even though gaming right now are making some of the biggest profits ever. This is just the things that Sony is able to do when they have a lack of competition. We saw them take one of the biggest losses in gaming history. Literally, the amount of money they put into this 8-year development, and then they basically made no money. They refunded all the sales and they took it offline. That is a massive loss that's going to sting forever. You could talk about the politics they put into it, but really it comes down to how boring and generic this game is. You had games like Valorant, Overwatch, Team Fortress. Conquered had a lot to compete with, Marvel Rivals, and they just did not do enough to distinguish themselves themselves, Valorant went the route of like going like with a hero shooter, but also mixing in like some CS:GO elements. Marvel Rivals, they have the luxury to fall back on a Marvel's IP, which everyone loves. Conquer doesn't have anything, and they didn't give anything to make themselves stand out. It's just a bland, generic game. And in today's landscape, you know, throwing 400 or however $100 million they did behind this game just isn't enough. You need some game with some sauce. You need some game with some aura. You need a game that's going to stand out and really wow people. And this was not it. They took a huge loss on this game, huge loss, pulled it from the servers, had to throw the game away, and then now they're looking to make their money back everywhere else. This is modern day Sony. Everywhere you look, they're just trying to raise the price more and more and more, from controllers to the games to the console itself, while also not really giving you a reason to buy into their platform. Because here's the thing, right? The reason that the console wars of 2013, 2014 was so heavy is because you had good options on both sides. With PlayStation now, you only have like a God of War, a Spider-Man, and like an Astrobots. There's very few reasons to be like, I want specifically a PlayStation, besides the fact, what I think the biggest reason to buy a PlayStation if you're looking for a console is that probably the majority of your friends have one. That's the biggest reason why people are buying it, is because that's where everyone is. And that's simple fact of like everyone already has one, so I might as well get one too. It's what gives Sony so much power and allows them to do all these things.